history, and then we're going to zoom up to today at today's headlines that are still happening surrounding this. There are centennial events that are being canceled because the request for reparations are too high. So that's where we are today. So let's get started and dive into this really, really difficult topic, but very, very important and necessary topic. So this is the tulsahistory.org website. I do urge you to comb through this. It has a lot of good content, good historical content that serves as a reminder. So May 31st through June 1st, 1921. On the morning of May 30th, 1921, a young Black man named Dick Rowland was riding in the elevator in the Drexel building at 3rd and Main with a white woman named Sarah Page. The details of what followed vary from person to person. Accounts of an incident circulated among the city's white community during the day and became more exaggerated with each telling. Tulsa police arrested Rowland the following day and began an investigation. An inflammatory report in the May 31st edition of the Tulsa Tribune spurred a confrontation between Black and white armed mobs around the courthouse, where the sheriff and his men had barricaded the top floor to protect Rowland. Shots were fired, and the outnumbered African Americans began retreating to the Greenwood district.
Right.
In the early morning hours of June 1st, 1921, Greenwood was looted and burned by white rioters. Governor Robertson declared martial law, and National Guard troops arrived in Tulsa. Guardsmen assisted firemen in putting out fires, took African Americans out of the hands of vigilantes, and imprisoned all Black Tulsans not already interned. Over 6,000 people were held at the convention hall and the fairgrounds, some for as long as 8 days. 24 hours after the violence erupted, it ceased. In the wake of the violence, 35 city blocks lay in charred ruins. More than 800 people were treated for injuries, and contemporary reports of deaths began at 36. Historians now believe as many as 300 people may have died. In order to understand the Tulsa Race Massacre, it is important to understand the complexities of the times. Dick Rowland, Sarah Page, and an unknown gunman were the sparks that ignited a long smoldering fire. Jim Crow, jealousy, white supremacy, and land lust all played roles in leading up to the destruction and loss of life on May 31st and June 1st, 1921. So it's really important to understand the way that facts were obfuscated and still are. So when they say, nobody knows what happened, well, what we now know is that they were lovers and they were kissing in the elevator. And she, the white girl, Sarah, she was saying, no, I love him. We were kissing and, I want to marry him. And that wasn't acceptable to people. Nobody listened to her. And so it's still in the history books is kind of, those things are, depending on the source, washed away.
Oh, 100%. So, they'll say it was accusations of rape, or they'll sexual assault, that he is, very uncomfortable past that a lot of folks still don't want to have a discussion about, which is unfortunate. At that particular time, and this was like, it still is with white supremacist ideology, right? This, like, the race mixing, this thing that they talk about is one of the worst things you can do, right? Because then that is how they lose the entire argument, right? Because if people start, race mixing, then race sort of disappears, doesn't it? Right? What little neat boxes can you put people into going forward? So that has always been like a big deal for these folks. Like if you go through any of the neo-Nazi or any of the white supremacist histories, that was one of the cornerstones of every ideological basis that they make in this area, is because they don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
interracial mixing is, it's the end of their ideology. Put a pitchfork in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So hiding that truth is really important. How can a white woman possibly love a black man? How is that? And there's also a documentary that was made, and I think it's called Loving, Loving, about a couple that, at that time, it was also illegal to get married in many states. In fact, I'd say
Right.
most of them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there was a lawsuit that went all the way to the Supreme Court on interracial marriage, a couple that wanted to get married. So there's this great documentary on that whole affair, which I recommend to everybody that wants to have an understanding of that part of history.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating and of course disturbing. Yeah, Loving
It's so
versus
disturbing.
Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the case, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We have such a dark history and such a dark present. In 2001, an official race riot commission was ordered in 2001. Jesus.
Yeah, it took all that long for them to even want to have a discussion on this is absolutely insane. And again, I think the other part of it is this was a very affluent in the sense that these were self-sufficient. This was a self-sufficient Black community that was doing really well for, on its own.
Yes.
Like they had their own businesses, so it was a thriving community. And I think that was very threatening as well.
Absolutely, it was. I'm going to show some historical footage actually of so-called Black Wall Street and the historical discomfort that caused white folks too. An official race riot commission was organized to review the details of the event. No one will ever know the absolute truth of what happened during the hours of the race massacre, which I think that's not true. I think people do know the absolute truth because it's been handed down through Black families in Tulsa. It's just that white people don't want to listen to it.
Yeah. Why don't you guys, get a microphone and go to Tulsa and have a conversation with, I guarantee there's probably some that were present that are, no, maybe not.
Right.
First generation, grandkids for sure, but definitely the children of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is a pretty whitewashed history right up there, let's say. But they do have interesting photographs. So when I say they're a good resource, I mean they have photos which at least those aren't doctored and documents and things like that. But here, this is interesting as well. And this is in the public domain. I don't know where it originated. But let me try to, the Smithsonian. Yeah. Let me try to boost this up for you here. So this is, it was called or dubbed Black Wall Street because this, even though the surrounding areas were quite poor for Black Americans, this area was thriving, the Greenwood area. And it was...
Can I interrupt you, Jen, for 1 second?
Sure.
Because I am totally not. I thought it was crazy, but I thought I had seen this and I'm not crazy. There is a 107-year-old survivor of Tulsa that's still alive.
Yeah, I have the clip of her ready to.
Oh, okay.
107, yeah. Okay. Viola. Yeah, Viola. So I have her ready to go. She's wonderful.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna play her. Yeah, and her brother too is alive.
Remarkable.
Yeah. So so this is from the Smithsonian. So Black Wall Street thriving, and reportedly you couldn't tell the difference between kind of the wealth of New York's Wall Street versus the Greenwood area, and the kind of the class of so-called Black Wall Street, Greenwood, and Tulsa. Right. And so Black Americans were thriving. And so that was really upsetting to racist white America. So this is historical footage.
Absolutely upsetting.
There's
again, that mix of economics and racism is just a deadly one. And these things are absolutely married.
Yeah, absolutely.
the ability to exploit, the white supremacists want the ability to exploit everybody that they have under their thumb. That's what undergirds it.
There's no sound to this footage, so just take a look.
If only we had camera phones back then. Yeah. And a lot of the conversations that happen now surrounding this idea of keeping Black dollars within the Black community, this is a prime example of how we had a thriving community that was doing just that and how it was destroyed. And 100 years on has not been replaced in any meaningful way, right?
Right.
There's an argument to be made for that. I know the data that they use for that argument that $1 stays within the Black community for only 6 hours versus, I think it's 28 for the Jewish. I don't even know how long for the white. That data is old. It's from the early 90s, unfortunately. So we don't know what the current data is. It'd be interesting to know what that data is. But of course, nobody would commission a study on this. It doesn't support capitalism. But I'd be curious to know where we are now in 2021. And some people can get into this conversation that why do we need to focus on that sort of thing in order, to abolish racism? Well, because all of these things are economically centered together. I mean, look at all the times, even recently, right, with some of these racist Trump supporters that wanted to boycott, Otter Pops because Otter Pops went down to the protests in Portland and gave out free Otter Pops. That made them threatening, right? So this sort of thing does happen, and we'd be silly to not acknowledge that. And there's no reason why we should be angry or upset about a Black community empowering themselves in that way. And in fact, I would say if you wanted to be a really solid ally to the Black community, you would get on board that and actively look to also spend dollars in the Black community. There's a way you can do that. I think even Killer Mike has a website where you can go online and find Black-owned businesses and buy from them directly. So this is something that we should all try to support. As we push for reparations, which is, this is like rolling a boulder up a hill. I even wrote about reparations back when I did my master's thesis. There's a lot of pushback against that because the white supremacists want to make it a conversation about race per se, right? So why is it that this is the argument they use. Why is it that me as a white person, I've done nothing I didn't own slaves. I'm not a descendant of slave owners. I've done nothing to uphold the system, but you want to punish me and take my money away and then give it to some Black folks that might not even be descendants of slave themselves. This is the kind of rhetoric they use, right? In reality, the argument has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that our government failed. Our government failed, right? So they have an obligation and responsibility and should be accountable for that failure. That failure is twofold. The first part is that they took money from Black folks and they allowed the free exchange of labor, right? So slaves obviously didn't get paid for the work they were doing. They also weren't able to have any legacy wealth established from that lost work, right? So if you're a white person and you own a farm and you work on that farm, not only do you make money in the here and now based on what that farm produces, there's also legacy wealth attached to that, right? I'm also going to own the property, and then 50 years later it's going to be more valuable. I can pass this on to my children. So there's two things that are at play there, right? That's the first part. The second part is after the slaves were freed, the government did not fulfill any of the obligations or promises it made at that time either, right? What was the saying, 40 acres and a mule kind of a thing? That didn't happen, nor were they protected. You had, following that, Jim Crow laws. So the continuation of slavery is still alive and well in this country. So again, the reparations argument really isn't about I'm taking money from white people and giving it to Black people. That's not what it's about. It's about the fact that the government failed in its obligations and should make right on that. So I want to I always try to bring that into the conversation because I think a lot of people get confused about why what this is about. You know what I'm saying? Let's underline it. And there is absolute legal precedence for that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's a great point.
There are always trolls, Henry, when we talk about things like this, right? The white supremacists have to jump in and yell at us. That's all right.
So the footage then gets...
They're wrong.
The footage then gets into the devastation that of when the massacre occurred. So these are content warning, very, very disturbing images from this point on.
Wow.
And then I have additional footage to show you guys. Again, a lot of this is difficult. But to give you an overview from people who know, from voices who know, I wanted to pull these clips. This is Julius Peg. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I'll assume Peguis. Talked about Tulsa, Oklahoma's historic Greenwood district and how Tulsa's African-American community overcame race riots to rebuild their community. So this is exactly what Tina was just talking about. So the community was thriving. The Greenwood district was thriving. And imagine what that district could have expanded into, the wealth that was there available for Black people. But then what happened, and what it had to be rebuilt from. And I'll show you some stories where it hasn't necessarily been rebuilt, and why folks are calling for reparations generally in America from slavery, but also specifically for Tulsa. So let's listen to some of what Julius has to say. And this is from C-SPAN. Oops, sorry guys.
That's all right. Also, Michelle Alexander's book is absolutely a must read if people want to learn more on this. The New Jim Crow. It's a fantastic book. Can somebody block the racist in the chat? How do we do that, Jen? Do you see this? Oh, okay, you got it. Oh, man, what is wrong with people?
One second, guys. Sorry. I didn't realize that you couldn't hear. Let me switch audio stuff. Apologies.
Oh, I thought that maybe you were streaming and I couldn't hear it.
No,
because Colin's not here.
Colin's not here.
I have to tell you, I'm disgusted with how many racist trolls that are showing up in this chat. What the hell, man? Like, all of you racist trolls can fuck all the way off. Seriously. You're human garbage. I'm sorry, I just can't. Okay.
Sorry, folks.
Yes, I'm back.
I'm going to mute you, Tina, so that it doesn't, so that they can just hear the video. 1 second, guys. Sorry, folks. Sorry, my friends. Always a fun time with. Hold on, it's still coming through my. Sorry, guys. I appreciate your patience with my dumbnosity. I will figure it out. Audio speaker. Yeah. That should be fine. Let me just take these out.
From
Okay, folks.
Arkansas, and his name was O.W. Gurley, and he bought 40 plus acres in this area in early 21st century, and he began to develop this area, selling real estate to individual blacks who wanted to own property. And the historic Greenwood area is the area where he bought this property. It became known as the Black Wall Street because of the number of business developers and entrepreneurs that came to the Greenwood area to start a business. There was a lot of promise here because although blacks were not allowed to work in the oil fields, there was a lot of opportunity for those people who worked for the wealthier people who were in the oil business. And so there was a lot of promise there. There was a lot of promise, a good job, good paying jobs, and the people took advantage of it. And in the Greenwood area, you had doctors, you had lawyers, you had pharmacists, you had educators, just anything that went into sustaining a quality of life for a community could be found in the Greenwood area. And that was the origin of it. People were looking for opportunities, and there was land available here in Tulsa. And so subsequently, it just flourished. And when they arrested this young man for this alleged assault on the elevator in this downtown department store, the word got around that they were going to try to lynch him. And quite naturally, the community said, that no, there isn't going to be a lynching. Okay, so the first night they went down and nothing happened. But the second night that they went down, a shot was fired, and from that, the melee started. I mean, it just chaos just broke out everywhere. And as a result, the whole Greenwood area was burned to the ground. The only building left standing was the high school. And that is where the Red Cross directors who was sent to Tulsa from St. Louis set up the aid station that was set up by the Red Cross. The aftermath of that was that people did not have any place to live. and the city passed an ordinance that said that you could not rebuild unless you used brick. Okay, well, brick, using brick was a prohibitive cost, and so Buck C. Franklin, who was an attorney that had just recently moved to Tulsa, he filed a lawsuit against the city and eventually got that law taken off of that ordinance taken off of their books. And people were able to rebuild their homes using wood or brick. So the Greenwood district was, by the middle of the 30s, like 1935, they had rebuilt the Greenwood district. Okay, and that is what this story should be all about, and that's the resiliency of the people and them being able to recover from such a disaster. Now we are standing in Reconciliation Park. The purpose of the park was to call the attention to the people who do not know about the 1921 race riot, for people to remember that such a disaster happened, and hopefully it will never happen again. So our whole effort here in Tulsa now is reconciliation. We're all about reconciliation. If you look at the Tower of Reconciliation, it gives you a history of coming to Indian Territory and people working and living together. And then up at the top, you'll see people reaching down, helping other individuals up to the top. And that is really what we ought to be all about all of the time, okay? Is man should treat man like we're all human beings, okay?
And that was a really wonderful interview by C-SPAN. Very, very important. And I think that is, he makes so many good and important points, and voices like his are not heard often. Oh, Tina, sorry.
That's all right.
I forgot to unmute you. Go ahead.
Oh, I won't take that personally. I think the point he makes about not being allowed to use brick is really an important one. That kind of gets dropped into the interview and not really expanded on. But this was a means of economically controlling the population, right? And this is something we saw across the country, not just in Tulsa. We see it with, redlining of mortgages is an obvious one. And in fact, even here in California, in Los Angeles, we had redline mortgages. And I think a lot of people don't know about that history in LA County. Yeah. There's a reason that Pasadena, Altadena, and some of these unincorporated, my goodness, areas of Los Angeles County that are not in the city of LA have traditionally Black populations. It's because of the redlining of mortgages. You could not get a mortgage in LA City for a long time if you were Black. This is where all of these racist forms of economic policy, where race is married together with economics, where it's really devastating for the community, and it's by design.
And that's still happening all over. Jordan did a great interview in Detroit. It's probably now a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago due to COVID. The time is mushing together, but people don't understand the impact of redlining, and people don't understand.
Huge impact. And again, when we talk, there are two things that you can use as metrics to understand economics in this capacity. The first is obviously income inequality. So when we look at income inequality, we're looking at standard forms of income, whether it's hourly or salary pay, right? These are incomes, right? Or money that comes in from owning stocks, bonds, dividends. That's one metric. I think the more important metric that rarely gets attention is wealth inequality, right? So wealth is when you're allowed to own property and it accrues value over time and you pass it on to your children, right? Wealth inequality in this country is far, far, far more extreme than even the income, and the income is bad enough, right? So when you add the wealth numbers into the mix, you really see how devastating these financial pictures are.
Yeah.
If you can't buy a house and you can't pass it on to your children, how do you garner wealth, right? And now we're in a time where it's really difficult to do that. Even, not just in the Black community, across the board it is, because the income inequality is so severe. It's very difficult for a lot of people to even consider buying a home at this point. So that entire mid-century period of time when the middle class was thriving, and where a lot of white families were able to have a single income, buy a home, pass it on to their kids, a lot of the Black community was not able to participate in that because of racism.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think people really understand that. So yes, reparations, I don't think this is any big shock. I have been a big proponent of reparations for a long time. I don't think there should be any debate on this. I think the only debate that should be had is how it's done. And obviously there's just a lot of different opinions in that area. The UN has a proposal, I think, that's pretty solid. Other folks, from the community have various opinions on this. These things can be worked out, though, right? This is not an insurmountable task, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great point, Stephen. The Tulsa Massacre was the first time a city was bombed from planes. It was by white people bombing Black people. It wasn't
100%.
by terrorists bombing us. It was
Arson.
we were the terrorists bombing Black people.
The intention was to destroy the community. I don't, how is that? How that isn't discussed? You're right. Like the fact that none of this is discussed in school. This is such an important part of history, and it's huge. It should be part of every history curriculum. But it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing it's not.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely want to show you Viola speaking, because she's incredible, but I do want to show you more of the photographs, because I think it's vital too. And also some of the where'd it go? Some of the newspaper articles of the time. And here is another interesting one, a panorama of the area after the ruin. So this is after the massacre.
Oh God.
And you can just see the complete and total devastation.
Unbelievable.
And this is from TulsaRaceRiot.org.
Legit making me tear up, girl. That's just unbelievable. Just completely destroyed. Completely destroyed. And for no reason. Why? Because two people loved each other.
Right.
Really, America?
Let's see.
Horrifying.
I had saved a specific page, but it didn't actually save. So excuse me for browsing around a bit, friends. Here's the Mount Zion Baptist Church in ruins, just completely destroyed.
Okay, while you're doing that, actually, Chris Simmons, and there's an interesting conversation going on. Oh, did you find it?
I'm just, there is a newspaper article, but I'm going to click around a bit. The east side.
So there's this whole argument, and again, I'm just explaining an argument here. I'm not necessarily a proponent of something I explain. I feel like I have to say that sometimes. So there's an argument about white guilt, white redemption. I think this is what Chris Simmons is referencing when he's saying that there is an effort to not teach anything that brings shame or guilt to a certain race.
Well,
group,
I want to, just because these photos are like solemn, let's hold that until.
Okay.
Yeah. This was the first picture of the riot. It's really difficult to make out what's happening, but it says it shows the first appliance of the torch. I'm not going to be saying the words like that are all over these. You can read what these newspapers will be saying, but I'm not going to be reading stuff out loud. This shows Greenwood ruins. So you can see it wasn't just about, as Tina said, this was about complete destruction. This wasn't about, it wasn't about, oh, they thought that this one Black kid assaulted, which he didn't do, assaulted a white girl or woman. This was about economics as well. They wanted this gone completely. And they took this as their kind of opportunity to destroy absolutely everything. Tulsa Daily World.
And then it just infiltrates out too, right? So it's not just we're going to destroy the economics of this community because we're racist and we can't have self-sufficient Black communities thriving in our midst. That's threatening. And then they want to turn around and complain about all of the socioeconomic problems that happen as a fallout to that, right? So, I mean, it just keeps, it's like you drop a pebble into the water and the waves keep going out, right? Well, so now we're going to complain about the crime when most of this crime is related to socioeconomics, right? So it's just like one thing after another, but the racists, I don't know, man, they're just so fucked up. I just don't have the words for that right now, I guess. It's fucked up. Right. They don't want to acquiesce to anything or be accountable for any of the things that they have caused, right? They want to blame the people that they've kept under their thumb for being kept under their thumb, right? As if it's like a next level victim blaming, I suppose, in a way, right?
Yeah, of course.
We're gonna destroy their self-sufficiency and take away their economic freedom, and then complain about what happens after the fact.
So this one, Reverend R.A. Whitaker was the pastor at Mount Zion Baptist Church, which you just saw a photo of being completely destroyed, which had only recently been completed and paid for before. They're calling it a riot. I'm going to call it a massacre. The reasons for its burning are debated, but it was believed to have held a large weapons cache. Of course they're going to say that. So that's exactly what they're saying in Israel about Palestine, about Gaza. That's always what they're, going to report when they destroy areas like this or buildings like this.
That's right.
So this is the pastor just trying to give relief to the folks of Greenwood. Just, oh gosh. Absolutely devastating. A funeral car. And of course, the initial reporting not even initial reporting, the reporting for many, many, many years, almost a century, was that I think it was over 30 people, but that 30 people or so had died, and it was well over that died, that were murdered. And of course, they tried their best to keep those numbers down to show, or so that it didn't look like they had murdered as many people as they actually did. It's just there's a lot of photos and things that survived this. Of course, they're very grainy. There's a lot to go through, but I think it's important to do. There are some that are more difficult to look at than others. This one is Tulsa.pastperfectonline.com, and they have even more than the other site. But there's also There are also newspaper articles like this: good may come out of writing. And so you can see the kind of propaganda that's always existed. And so I do recommend that you take some time. We, of course, don't have time on this to click through absolutely everything. But I think it's important to take the time to go through this and just reflect, I guess, on what our country actually is. I wish I could just click around with you guys all day because I think it's, I don't know, I find it important. This is a newspaper article. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. No, the site never lets me do it. This is a newspaper article that was published right when this happened. You can read the title for yourself. And so the police gave him the nickname of Diamond Dick. And he was identified as Dick Rowland, who was arrested on South Greenwood Avenue this morning. So this morning, meaning exactly 100 years ago, by officers Carmichael and Pack, charged with attempting to assault the 17-year-old white elevator girl in the Drexel building early yesterday. He will be tried in municipal court this afternoon on a state charge. The girl said she noticed him a few minutes before the attempted assault, looking up and down the hallway. So that's a complete lie. That's not what she said. Right. On the third floor of the Drexel building, as if to see if there was anyone in sight, but thought nothing of it at the time. A few minutes later, he entered the elevator, she claimed, and attacked her. Again, that's not what she said.
That's not, yeah. I mean, this is so gross.
Scratching her hands and face and tearing her clothes. No. Her screams brought a clerk from Renberg's store to her assistance, and he fled. He was captured and identified this morning, both by the girl and clerk, police say. Rowland denied that he tried to harm the girl, but admitted he put his hand on her arm in the elevator when she was alone. Tenants of the Drexel building said the girl is an orphan who worked as an elevator operator to pay her way through business college. So this article is just a complete lie. And
wow.
You can see how corporate media has always been, how it still is today, because we have the police still lying about George Floyd. We still have the police lying about Ronald Green for 2 years. We still have, I was just talking to Jordan, he's been reading, on his honeymoon, he was reading a JFK book that I gave him. And I was telling him about JFK's mistress in the last 2 years of his life was Mary Mayer. And she was murdered a year after JFK's assassination. And it was part of this cover up. But the point is, she was murdered on the street, on the sidewalk, and they captured a black man, the first black man they came across, and held him for a year. There was, of course, no evidence against him. They just literally found a random black man. And so this happens all the time throughout history, whether it's the 20s, the 60s, the 2020s, it's still happening all the time. So it's disgusting, it's horrible, and it hasn't changed. That's what the corporate media is. That's what the corporate media does. So that's, I'll say it all the time. That's why status quo exists. That's why independent media exists. It's because we're tired of it. This is not how it should be. This complete lie is not okay. It's not acceptable in any way. So here's what everybody's been clamoring for. Just incredible. Love her.
Oh, there she is. Yeah. Okay.
107 years old. So there were 3 Tulsa race massacre survivors called to testify a couple weeks ago. And she was called, as well as her brother. So this is quite long, so I'll play bits of it. Miss Viola Fletcher, and she's as amazing as you think she is. So let me pop her fully on the screen here for everybody.
And John Wesley Ford of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Name is that okay? My name is Viola Ford Fletcher. I'm the daughter of Lucinda Ellis and John Wesley Ford of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm the sister of Hughes Van Ellis, who is also here today. I'm a survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. 2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 107th birthday. Today, I'm visiting Washington, D.C. for the first time in my life. I'm here seeking justice, and I'm asking my country to acknowledge what happened in Tulsa in 1921. On May 31st in 21, I went to bed at my family's home in Greenwood, neighbors of Tulsa. The neighborhood I felt asleep in that night was rich, not just in terms of wealth, but in culture, community, heritage, and my family had a beautiful home. We had great neighbors, and I had friends to play with. I felt safe. I had everything a child could need. I had a bright future ahead of me. Greenwood could, Still, Greenwood should have given me the chance to truly make it in this country. Within a few hours, all of that was gone. The night of the massacre, I was awakened by my family. My parents and 5 siblings were there. I was told we had to leave, and that was it. I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see Black men being shot, Black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see Black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot. I will not. And other survivors do not. And our descendants do not. When my family was forced to leave Tulsa, I lost my chance of an education. I never finished school past the 4th grade. I have never made much money in my country. State and city took a lot from me. Despite this, I spent time supporting the war effort in the shipyards of California. But most of my life, I was a domestic worker serving white families. I never made much money, but to this day, I can barely afford my everyday needs. All the while, the city of this Tulsa have unjustly used the names and stories of victims like me to enrich myself and its white allies through the 30s million raised by the Tulsa Centennial Commissioner while I was continuing to live in poverty. I am a 107-year-old and have never seen justice. I pray that one day I will. I have been blessed with a long life and have seen the best and the worst of this country. I think about the terror, horror inflicted upon Black people in this country every day. This continuity has the power to lead us down a better path. I'm asking that my country acknowledge what has been happened to me. the tremors and the pain, the loss, and I ask survivors and descendants to be given a chance to seek justice, open the door. All of you know how easy it is to deny that a violent mob threatened your lives and took your property. For 70 years, the city of Tulsa and its Chamber of Commerce told us that the massacre didn't happen, like we didn't see it with our own eyes. You have me here right now. You see Mother Randall, you see my brother Hughes Van Ellis. We live this history and we can't ignore it. It's our lives with us. Oh my goodness. We lost everything that day, our homes, our churches, our newspapers, our theaters, our lives. Greenwood represented all the best of what was possible for Black people in America and for all the people. No one cared about us for almost 100 years. We and our history have been forgotten, washed away. This Congress must recognize us and our history. For Black America, for the white Americans, and for all Americans, with that's some justice. Is that it? Thank you. I thought it was another page.
You want to say anything else?
Mhm.
Anything else you want to say?
No, it's not.
Thank you very much. We appreciate very much your testimony. Mother Fletcher, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. So thank you for putting us on the right course to learn and to understand and to do better.
Thank you.
Are you the older of the two siblings?
The older?
Are you older than your brother here?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
So he's used to having a tough act to follow. Next witness is Mr. Hughes Van Ellis,
Yeah.
known as Uncle Red.
Yep.
He's a World War II veteran, having served the United States Army in the China-Burma-India Theater of Operations as a member of an all-Black unit. He's also a survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Uncle Red, you're on.
Chairman, for Ranking Member Johnson and member of the subcommittee. My name is Hughes Van Ellis. I am 100 years old, and I am a survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Because of the massacre, my family was driven out of our home. We were left with nothing. We were made refugees in our own county. My childhood was hard and we didn't have much. We worried what little we worried what little we had would be stolen from us, just like it was stolen in Tulsa. You may have been taught that when something is stolen from you, you can go to the courts to be made whole. You can go to the courts to get justice. This wasn't the case for us. The courts in Oklahoma wouldn't hear us. The federal courts said we were too late. We were made to feel that our struggle was unworthy of justice, that we were less valued than whites, that we weren't fully Americans. We were shown that in the United States, not all men were equal under the law.
We were shown that when black voices called out for justice, no one cared. But we still had faith things would get better. We still believe in the promise of America in the cases of freedom. I did my duty in World War II. I served in combat in the Far East with the 234th AAA Gun Battalion. We were all black battalion. I fought for freedom aboard, even though it was ripped away from me at home. Even after my home and my community were destroyed. It's because I believe in the end, America would get its right. When I returned home from the war, I didn't find any of this freedom. I was fighting for overseas. Unlike white servicemen, I wasn't entitled to GI Bill benefits because of the color of my skin. I came home to segregation, a separate and unequal America, but still I believed in America. This is why we are still speaking up today. Even at this age of 100, the Tulsa Race Massacre is a footnote in the history books for us. We live with it every day, and the thought of what Greenwood was and what it could have been. We aren't just black and white pictures on a screen. We are flesh and blood. I was there when it happened. I'm still here. My sister was there when the family. She's still here. We are not asking for a handout. All we are asking for is for a chance to be treated like a first-class citizen. Who truly in the picture of the promise that this is a land where there is liberty and justice for all. We are asking for justice for a lifetime of ongoing harm that was caused by the massacre. We can give us the chance to be hard and give us a chance to be made whole. After all of these years and after all of our struggle, I still believe in America. I still believe in the ideas that I fought overseas to defend. And believe if given this chance, I will do the right thing and justice will be served. Please do not let me leave this earth without justice like all the others. Massacre survivors, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Do you want to say anything else? You want to say anything else?
I want to say I appreciate being here, and I hope we all will work together. We are one. We are what?
Thank you, Mr. Van Ellis, aka Uncle Red. The last witness on our panel is coming to us through Zoom, our reasonable facsimile of such, Miss Leslie Benningfield Randall. Mother Randall was 6 years old when she lived through the Tulsa race massacre. Mother Randall will be joining us virtually. Mother Randall, you are recognized now.
Good morning, Chairman Cohen,
Good morning.
Second Member Johnson, and members of the subcommittee. I am blessed and honored to be here speaking with you today. It means a lot to me to finally be able to look at you all in the eye and ask you to do the right thing. I have waited so long for justice. My name is Leslie Evelyn Benningfield Randall. People call me Mother Randall. Today I'm 106 years old. 100 years ago, in 1921, I was a 6-year-old child. I was blessed to live with my grandmother in a beautiful Black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, called Greenwood. I was lucky. I had a home and I had toys. I didn't have any fear. I was a young child and I felt very safe. I was thinking, my community was beautiful and was filled with happy and successful Black people. Then everything changed. It was like a war. White men with guns came and destroyed my community. We couldn't understand why. What did we do to them? We didn't understand. We were just living, but they came and they destroyed everything. Let's see. They burned houses and businesses. They just took what they wanted and out of the building. Then they burned the building, burned them. They murdered people. We were told they just dumped the dead bodies into the river. I remember running outside of our house. I just passed dead bodies. It wasn't a pretty sight. I still see it today in my mind 100 years later. I was so scared. I didn't think we could make it out alive. I remember people were running everywhere. We waited for the soldiers to come. And when they finally came, they took us to the background where we would be safe. It felt like so long before they came. Thank you. Let's see. I survived the 1921 Tulsa race massacre, and I have survived 100 years of painful memories and losses. By the grace of God, I am still here. I have survived. I have survived to tell this story. I believe that I am still here to share it with you. Hopefully, Now you all will listen to us while we are still here. Some more? The white people who did this to us were filled with so much hate. It is disgusting that they hate us that they hate us for no reason except that we are black people. We know most of the people who committed these acts and died are dead now. The three of us here today are the only ones left that we know of. But just because these men are probably dead, the city and county of Tulsa, the state of Oklahoma, and the Tulsa Chamber are still responsible for making it right, because it was they who caused the massacre, and it's continued. The chamber helped ensure that we could not rebuild after the massacre, including holding us in intimate camps. They owe us something. They owe me something. I have lived much of my life by opportunities. My opportunities were taken from me, and taken from me and my community. North Tulsa, Black Tulsa is still messed up today. They didn't rebuild it. They sure did. It's empty. It's a ghetto. They have raised more than $30 million and have refused to share any with me or the other two survivors. They have used my name to further their fundraising goals without my permission. Now that's a crime, and misrepresenting my support of their upcoming continuing events focused on making Tulsa look good and not justice. You can help us get some justice. America is still full of examples where people in positions of power, many just like you, have told us to wait. Others have told us it's too late. It seems like justice in America is always so slow or not possible for Black people. And we are made to feel crazy just for asking for things to be made right. There are always so many excuses for why justice is so slow or it never happened at all. I am here today, 106 years old, looking at you all in the eye. We've waited 100 years. No, we have waited too long, and I am tired. We are tired. And lastly, I am asking you today to give us some peace, for some peace. Please give me, my family, and my community some justice. Thank you. Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
Just what do you even say to that? I feel grateful that we are. I feel like it's a gift that we are able to hear the testimony of those three amazing people. I do. I feel like that's a true gift.
I agree.
You
It's
know,
remarkable.
years,
They're 106, 107 years old. It's
right?
remarkable.
And hearing, Viola saying, and we know, her family was doing well, had a beautiful home, her and her brother, and then her family was not doing well, and she has since then never done well, and she has not had enough money to take care of basic needs since then, basic human needs, and she has served white families for I don't recall if she said for how long, but it seemed like for much of her life she has since served white families and not been able to take care of basic needs. She seems like a beautiful, wonderful, inspiring woman.
Yeah.
And this is how America treats her. And
yeah, that's the point of the massacre, isn't it? To keep arson everything down, burn everything down, then put a law in place that says you have to rebuild with bricks that are very expensive and not these cheaper materials. Like, it's all by design, right?
Yeah, it is exactly by design. And you're totally right to bring up the bricks. Like, let's make it as difficult as possible for people to rebuild. Let's just destroy
Let's make
their
it
lives.
cost prohibitive, right? Let's make it cost prohibitive. Let's do this thing. So okay, this is so weird. I was reading this sort of an important tangent. I was reading an article that they're in Oakland now using something called Cobb to build shelters for homeless folks. And I kept thinking as I was reading this article how helpful this would have been knowledge-wise to use, like even back in the 20s, right? And for example, for this instance, because you can make bricks out of cob. And for folks that don't know what cob is the stuff that they've used in England like a century ago. It's made out of straw, clay, and sand, right? So it's earth. It's sort of like adobe, but it's more earthy, I guess. But it's very long lasting. It actually withstands all kinds of weather problems and earthquake. It's very solid and it's cheap as hell, right? So, I mean, all you need is clay, sand, and straw. And you can build a building out of this. It's called Cobb, C-O-B. So they're using this up in Oakland now, in Northern California, to build very affordable houses. I'm sure somebody will find a way to take that down as well. But it's just reminding me of that. So they try to, they outlaw brick because it's expensive to use brick, and they use it as a way of keeping racism in check and in place. And now all these years later, they're coming up with this idea to use cob. I wish we had it back then. They could have made cob bricks and been like, F you, white supremacists.
But that would be just a Band-Aid in any case, because they would have found some other way to keep.
Oh, 100%. It's always a Band-Aid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like years and years and decades of Band-Aids. This government, because you know what? It's all designed to keep capitalism in its place, right? White supremacy, whites at the top. It's hierarchical, and capitalism is the system that undergirds that. And that has always been the case.
And then you have Mr. Red, her brother, who fought in World War II in an all-Black unit, which I find that interesting. Not surprising, of course, but that, and he still said, I believe in this country. I believe in, what this country has to offer.
Which is amazing. Yeah. How could you could be treated so poorly for so long and still believe in the Constitution and what this country is supposed to represent? I don't think it's ever fulfilled its promise.
No,
make something of it. This is the Constitution. Make something of it. We have never fulfilled the promises of that document in this country.
Well, it's like walking, I'm sure you've seen this too, Tina, but walking around DC last weekend, there was a really striking example of a houseless person with their tent covered in American flags, and just and it's the eternal optimism, and people have gone through really horrible things, just having the kindest hearts, and so these three amazing folks who survived the Tulsa massacre and what this country has done to them their entire lives for 100 years, literally for 100 years, what these people have been through and experienced, and the trauma. And so we all have to remember, it's not just the trauma of what happened a century ago. They're also having the trauma of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Dante Wright, Andrew Brown, Ronald Green, constant having to serve white families, Viola, all the time. I don't know hopefully she worked with families that were kind to her, but there's still a class system there that isn't fair or right. And still she has this optimism of showing up to Congress and hoping that Congress makes it right, which you can't make it right no matter what happens, but she still has an optimism, and she still is showing up and still detailing her experiences and still hoping that before she passes away, that something is done. And forgive me for forgetting the third lovely woman's name. I don't know if you recall, but all three speakers have this optimism that something will be made right. Reparations for Tulsa, slave reparations. And why are we not immediately giving back the land in Greenwood to those families? That's clearly their land. Like, there's no dispute, there's no debate there. Like, that could be immediately done. And
all kinds of things could be immediately done if our government had the will to do it. But the bottom line is both parties continue to uphold a system that is classist and racist by design.
Of course. And so C-SPAN's like panning to Jim Jordan, who's like, he gives a crap, like he cares at all. And it's just, it's for these people, it's just a show. And you have these people who are giving their whole hearts and minds, who are making it to all the way to DC at 107 years old, because they are giving it their all. They're giving their testimony of what they went through and hoping for some change finally. And what are we doing? We're doing nothing. America is what it always has been. And so I have a couple of stories that demonstrate that indeed America is what it always has been. And are we ever going to change? I don't know. I think hopefully people are waking up, but I don't know.
I think we will. I think it's starting slowly to improve it, but only because I think, we've talked about this before. I think the big thing that has changed this is camera phones and social media. Right. It's in everybody's face now. You can't really deny that cops are racist or that they're killing innocent Black folks. This is not up for debate. We've seen it time and time again, right? So I think, I do think it's starting, not quickly enough, of course, but I do think it's starting to change. I also think the fact that people are actually willing to talk about reparations is a big shift. You know, that's a new thing. Reparations have been on the table for decades now, but getting any politician to actually address the idea of them has been impossible until now. And this Democratic primary, I have to give credit to Marianne Williamson for being willing to talk about that on national television. That is the first time I've seen that happen from any politician. And she certainly did something to push the Overton window on that. And I think more people are starting to come to terms with the idea of what it actually is. Again, it's about a failed government making good on that failure, right? It's not about shifting wealth from white people to black people. It's about something bigger and constitutional. Our government failed. That is not up for debate.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I do think that it's going, you know, black people have been fighting for so long for justice. I think it's going to take white people getting off their asses and not going back to sleep and not saying, okay, George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, guilty on all 3 counts. Now I can go back to brunch. It's going to take, you know, listening about, you know, the danger of the white moderate, which is the Biden supporter, and actually pushing the pocketbooks of those in power and the bank accounts of those in power, and doing something about all of this, because police violence, police murders, they're still happening all the time. So it can't just be black people and people of color pushing for change. White people need to en masse push for change too, and pay attention to these things, and do the organizing, and not just, you know, snooze on this.
And I think part of that conversation too is white folks are actually finally realizing that the police force exists mainly to protect personal property, not they're not about justice. They're not the good guy. It's not this idea that Hollywood has sold you, right? That these guys are heroes and they're out there fighting for justice and they're fighting the bad guy and blah, blah, blah. No, you see it time and time and again at these protests. And I think it's taken the video of folks actually seeing it right there in their faces. They're there to protect the property of wealthy individuals. When you're at a protest, they're not there. Their main concern is like, I'm going to fire tear gas and rubber bullets because I don't want the protesters to start harming the property, right? The property of the corporations, the property of the wealthy elites. So that's, I think, a big realization for a lot of folks. And I think the more that they're exposed to these things, it's shifting the conversation faster. So I do think change is coming. And I think it's because of phone cameras and social media. Yeah. And also media like us that actually are showing what's going on, not just the corporate media that wants to protect the plutonymy, protect the wealth, right?
Right. Letitia, you make me smile. You're so positive and so you're making me smile with your good comments and stuff like that. I do apologize for the trolls. They're making me furious.
I know. What the hell, man?
It's disgusting.
I've never seen so many racist trolls in one stream. It's like
someone must have shared it on 4chan or some racist place
or Telegram.
So I do apologize, but Letitia, you're definitely making me smile with your positive comments. And that's we're so dedicated to shining a light on what needs to be shown, I don't know, whatever the word is. We're covering the stories that need to be covered, like Colin Tooley, amazing editor. We're turning him slowly into a journalist. He did a great job. So Marvin Scott III, murdered by jailers, correctional officers, for simply having a bit of weed. And he was diagnosed schizophrenic, was having a mental health issue. But cops put a spit hood on him and restrained him to death in jail. He ended up dead. His family didn't find out until the next day. This was in Texas, near Dallas, in Collin County, Texas. And his parents found out the next day via text message that they had murdered their child. By all accounts, Marvin Scott III, just such a happy-go-lucky guy, tons of friends, beloved uncle, beloved brother, beloved son. So getting basically no national coverage, When Colin went down a couple weeks ago, we're the only national network covering this. Organizers are working hard. Marvin's mother, Lysandra, has had to take a leave from her job, so they have a GoFundMe going, and Colin interviewed Lachey, Marvin's sister, and honestly, she hasn't done many interviews, and she did one with Status Coup. Because we've been covering this, and it's it's so important that we do. So they're having a barbecue tomorrow to raise awareness for what happened to Marvin. So Colin will be there, and so definitely check that out. I believe he'll be going live. I don't know what time. I believe it will be around 2 Central, but we'll let you know what's happening. We hope to get some additional interviews with the family, but everyone needs to know what happened at the hands of correctional officers to yet another Black man. And nobody's talking about this. This is not in Washington Post. This is not on CNN. Nobody's talking about this. And who cares that Marvin had a little bit of weed, which he used to self-medicate?
Give me a break.
Which I do. I use weed to self-medicate. I carry it with me everywhere I go. Am I arrested and dead? No, I'm not, because I'm a white girl. And Marvin is dead. And his nephew, his 2-year-old nephew, there's a horrible, sad video, and where his grandmother, Lysandra, is showing the nephew a video of Marvin, and the little 2-year-old turns and says, "Marvin killed." And that's what the nephew has to grow up with. His uncle that he loved and was so much fun was killed in jail for having some weed. And so that's what we do here at Status Coup, is we cover these stories that need to be covered, and this stuff is still going on. So so definitely tune in tomorrow. We'll let you know exact timing and things as we know. So here's a story. This actually has been an ongoing story, as a business owner in the Greenwood district of Tulsa has been struggling to hold on to her business. Her a Black woman, Tori, I believe her name is. Yes, Tori. So she's had this business for over a decade, a hair salon, and it's been a long journey for her. And this is the latest update, but this is to show you that racism is alive and well in the Greenwood district in Tulsa. And so this update came out in January of this year.
Right.
So Greenwood Chamber of Commerce member under fire after allegedly calling business owner a racial slur. Tori Tyson filed a lawsuit against the Greenwood Chamber. Her lawyer says the deed is not in the Greenwood LLC name. He says what Greenwood is doing is unethical, and come Sunday, Tori is not closing her doors. She paid dues. So to give you some background, as much as I understand it, I don't understand the entire timeline, which I think is okay. That's not exactly the point of reporting this specific thing, but she's had this business for, I think, a dozen years in the Greenwood district. She used to pay about $700 or so. The rent was spiked up to about $1,200, which was untenable. And so she tried to fight to keep it in Greenwood, keep a Black-owned business in the Greenwood district, which of course is where historic Black Wall Street was. And she fought long and hard. And the sad update is she was not able to keep it in Greenwood in the end. But through this fight, there was a lot of racism directed toward her. Right. A member of the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce is receiving backlash after allegedly calling a business owner the N-word. Tori Tyson, the owner of Blowout Hair Studio in the Greenwood district, is fighting to stay open. She says she is being wrongfully evicted by the chamber. Blowout has been in business for 40 years, but doors could shut for good January 10th. So I guess she's been the owner for a dozen. Tyson is worried for her family's legacy, and more history of Black Wall Street may be wiped away. Tyson says for more than a year, the chamber raised her rent 3 times while her neighboring businesses didn't see increases. I paid my rent. I didn't pay my rent increase because y'all not charging everyone the same. In July, she demanded the chamber show an itemized receipt explaining why her rent was raised and even went to court. However, chamber board member Reverend Evans says Tyson never paid the correct amount in 2 years and is being evicted. Earlier this week, Tyson and friends protested the eviction. During the protest, Evans went up to the group of participants and called them the N-word. Evans says he was attacked by the protesters, first by being called hateful names on these signs. Ooh, what an attack. I didn't call anyone a bad word. They called us a bad word, and we didn't try to degrade anybody. They had our pictures up degrading us. Reverend Kenneth Evans is unapologetic and says Tyson deserved to be called the racial slur because she acted in a disrespectful, loud, and obnoxious manner.
Holy shit. Oh, wait, Jen, stop for a second.
Yeah.
So he does a racism and then he justifies his doing a racism with more racism.
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding me right now?
I'm sure we're all aware of the fact that these racist assholes often use the trope of the loud black woman, which is a complete racist, horrible trope.
Wow.
That is exactly what this guy is doing, on top of
That's
using
shocking.
the worst racial slur that you could possibly use. Like after he denied it, he's like, oh yeah, I did because of this racist thing I'm going to say. Like what?
Yeah, that's like fucking unbelievable, really, on every level.
Tori says she never called him names during the altercation. She just wanted to know why she was being charged more and wants transparency with the chamber. City Councilwoman Vanessa Hall Harper is showing support to Tyson. She says the chamber is self-organized, so city council members didn't vote for anyone to be on the board. Hall says they need new board members who are a part of the community and care about it. They want to carry the name of Greenwood, but they don't want to act in the spirit of Greenwood, and that's a problem. So why that didn't make national headlines, I'm not sure. But that is completely disgusting, and that's to show you that this isn't over.
No,
The Tulsa race massacre was not the end of it. It's alive and well in the Greenwood district. It's alive and well all across America. That's not it. That's not the end of the examples that I'm going to show you. Here's another. This is out of The Root, a wonderful publication, a Black publication. Tulsa Race Massacre commemoration event canceled because reparations demand for survivors was too high. This is Viola. Tulsa Race Massacre survivors Viola Fletcher left and Leslie Benningfield Randall. Oh, that's Ms. Randall. That's the other who we saw speaking. Right. Listen during a rally marking centennial commemorations of a 2-day assault by armed white men on Tulsa's prosperous Black community of Greenwood. For Black America, the demand for reparations, this was written by Zach Lindley. For Black America, the demand for reparations is always an uphill battle. Even when lawmakers and other elected officials appear to be for reparations, it often seems like they're only half in. For example, there's never any proposed legislation that greenlights actual monetary compensation for descendants of slavery. It's always a commission to examine the possibility of discussing reparations, which always reads as lawmakers doing the bare minimum in order to look like they're doing more. Exactly.
Yeah, show us the goods already. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, and I have to say, in this particular instance, it's not just the United States of America. It's the entire Ascento, or the slave trade, right, is what I'm discussing here. It wasn't just the American government, was it? Every single one of those governments are responsible for what they engaged in, what they supported, and should all be held accountable, period, end of story. And that should not be a controversial statement. The fact that we're now in 2021, that hasn't been dealt with is actually incredibly insane to me. It's remarkable.
Right, right. Monday will represent the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. On Friday, it was announced that an event to commemorate the anniversary was set to take place in Tulsa was canceled because the Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission was unable to reach an agreement with state officials regarding the monetary compensation for 3 Black people who survived the horror of mass murder by a white mob who burned the affluent Black city to the ground. From the AP, Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons told the Associated Press that he submitted a list of requests to the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission in order to have the survivors attend the Remember and Rise event Monday at 10K Field in Tulsa. The commission had enlisted Grammy Award-winning singer and songwriter John Legend to headline the event, and voting rights activist Stacey Abrams was to deliver the keynote address. After months of zero communication and under immense pressure that John Legend and Stacey Abrams may no longer participate if the survivors were not centered, a meeting was scheduled for Saturday, Solomon Simmons said in a text message to the AP. Immediately following that call, our legal team submitted a list of 7 requests to ensure their survivors' participation with the commission's scheduled events. The agreement was to have answers on each of the requests by Tuesday. That didn't happen. Solomon Simmons is representing the survivors and their descendants in a lawsuit against the city of Tulsa and other defendants seeking reparations for the destruction of the city's once thriving Black district. State Senator Kevin Matthews, the chairman of the commission, said after meeting with Solomon Simmons and other representatives of the survivors, the commission agreed to provide $100,000 to each of the 3 survivors, along with $2 million in seed money for a reparations fund. The representatives for the survivors and descendants of one of the most vicious attacks on the Black community in the last 100 years said that $100,000 isn't enough, because it isn't. But Matthews said that the amount of money Solomon Simmons demanded was far too much. We raised the money and we were excited the survivors were going to accept these gifts, Matthews said Friday. Unfortunately, on Sunday, they reached out and increased the amount of the $100,000 per survivor gifts to $1 million. And instead of $2 million, they asked for $50 million. $50 million in seed money. We cannot respond to those demands. I bet you would respond to those demands if it were some, financial company or Madonna or, whatever.
Well, we already know if a bankster makes that demand, they'll double it to $100 million.
Yeah, of course. To be clear, I want the survivors, the descendants, and others that were affected to be financially and emotionally supported, he continued. However, this is not the way. Let's do some investigation into the inflation rate, shall we?
Yeah. I laugh because, seriously, right? This is nothing.
Right. It's one thing if $50 million is simply unaffordable. If you ain't got it, just say you ain't got it. But when Matthews positions himself as the arbiter of what the way is, he loses me. Mm-hmm. Matthews is not Black, Matthews is Black, but he's not a survivor of the massacre. Solomon Simmons said the $50 million figure was never a non-negotiable demand. AP reports, which is why it's just odd that the whole thing got scrapped. You mean to tell me no one could find any middle ground between $2 million and $50 million? Of course, on one hand, it's a shame that an agreement couldn't be reached and the event was canceled. On the other hand, commemorating the race riot was the easy part. Reparations for the survivors was the important part, and that's where America always seems to fall short.
Yeah.
Saying I'm sorry isn't the same as making amends. And the survivors of this horrific time in America's relatively recent history deserve more than the bare minimum. So that is horrible that the event was canceled and that they didn't even attempt to try to reach that middle ground. Truly, this should have been done a long time ago. This isn't a matter of, oh, we've been trying all this time and
Right.
these demands have just been obscene and blah, blah, blah. They haven't been trying. They haven't tried to reach a middle ground. This is just an excuse to back out of it.
Right. 100%.
If it were any other pop star or any celebrity or whatever, but because it's these 3 survivors that had their lives stolen, that had their community massacred, they don't care.
No. The
and
plutonymy feathers the plutonomy's nest. We know this, right? You make the point about if it had been a bank. Yeah, are you kidding me? Trillions of dollars we can give free money to any bank, right? We can bail them out and we can make all of the ridiculous arguments that our entire well-being, like everybody's well-being depends on that, which is not the case. But, that's of course what they're going to say. Personally, I think we would all benefit by capitalism being taken down about 50 notches or more.
Right.
The 1%, year after year after year, they are gobbling up more than 80% of the new wealth that is created. This is not a tenable system. At some point, the roosters are going to come home to roost, meaning that they're going to have to look around and see why nobody has expendable income around them. We can no longer buy the widgets you're producing that you need us to buy in order to maintain your system, right? It's sort of the death of capitalism. But it's interesting that we've all been so brainwashed in the United States of America to believe that this is the way we preserve freedom in this country, right? Capitalism equals freedom, which is just ridiculous. But that is what we've been told, and we've spent most of our lives not questioning it. And then when they serve up another layer of bullshit to justify all these other things, no questioning, right? But I think that is finally changing. I think that enough people are kind of going, wait a second. How much money did we give in 2010 to the banksters that almost completely devoured our system with their greed, inexcusable greed, run amok? How many?
Right.
And we can't do reparations. We can't do things like Medicare for all. That is by design. Of course we can. We can afford all of these things. It's just whether or not we have the will to do them.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. It's like the article said, it seems like it's always talk when it comes to reparations. Any politician who seems pro reparations, it's really pro let's talk about reparations and put out good headlines about reparations.
And Jen, that doesn't even happen, right? Seriously, that very little tiny thing barely happens, which is ridiculous too. Like a lot of politicians in the past have considered like that the kiss of death if they bring it up, that they can't win an election, so they choose not to. Like, let's be honest, most politicians don't make cases based on moral grounds. They should, right? That is what we should gravitate to as people. These folks are supposed to be public servants. They're supposed to be serving the will of their constituency, which is not the plutonymy, which is not the banksters, right? It's the people that live in their districts, whatever those districts are, whether it's a state, congressional district, whatever. But time and time again, they're caught up in this vicious cycle where they have to earn, taking lots of money in order to win an election, right? Because of the way the system's set up. And if they don't take in the money and they don't get the publicity that they need, if they don't buy the ad spots with the revenue that they get from these big donors, they won't win, which is like insanely ridiculous. We talk about this all the time, right? How many good candidates do we lose in a primary because they don't have the money to fund a solid primary race against an established individual? Too many times. And what part of that are we responsible for as Americans, right? Do we participate in that system? I think we do. I think we don't always do it consciously, but I think we do. How many times do we stay home instead of going to that primary to vote for somebody or to just take the time to learn about who's running in that race instead of accepting whatever platitude is thrown at us by each party? You know, I mean, I'm a leftist, clearly. I don't think that's up for debate, but to believe that the Democratic Party always has your best interest at heart is absolutely emphatically stupid. They don't. They also serve the plutonomy. We know this.
Right. So I calculated it. $50 million today is worth $3,744,000 about in 1920. So not ridiculous.
I don't think, no, it's not ridiculous at all.
Over a
It's not
lifetime? No. Over
No, it's
100
not.
years? No.
It's probably on the low end if you really want to be authentic about what these numbers mean. I mean, and they're doing the same thing with the minimum wage, right? Like fight for 15. Are you fucking kidding me? That ship sailed. It should be fight for 30.
You're thinking about they took away a business from
That's right.
from her family. They took away her family's house. They took away a lifetime of earnings from her. So let's even it out at $4 million. So $4 million over 100 years for her entire family and her. No, that's nothing. That's absurd.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not. So again, this is about wealth inequality, not strictly income inequality. And I think that's the more salient metric because it talks about what's lost over time due to not being able to own the property. It's not just, you know, my salary today. It's what would I have had I been able to retain this ownership for, you know, decades and pass it on to my children, which is what you see as a normal thing if you're a white family, right? That's not up for debate, is it?
well, I mean,
All the wealthy families do this, right, in this country.
Viola's 107. She doesn't want it for her, clearly. Like,
Of course not.
Right.
It's for the community. That was a flourishing community. It was a flourishing community that was absolutely destroyed. And it was destroyed because it was flourishing. It was destroyed because, you know, the racists and the capitalists cannot possibly imagine a self-sustained, empowered community for Black folks. That's just a very threatening thing. If you're the plutonomy and you know you're thriving and becoming a trillionaire at this point off of your greed, that is a very threatening thing because again, capitalism and racism are absolutely intertwined.
Yeah. Folks, I'm popping the Wakelet link into the chat so that you guys can check out all the links that I shared today. So there's that. Also, we do need help affording new in-field reporting equipment. You can do so. You can help us out at statuscoup.live.
Yes. I would like to be able to live stream without using my T-Mobile, what do we call this ghetto stream that I've got going? Like, it's so hard to not have really good quality internet. And if you're just using straight internet, you guys have seen the video. It gets very blurry. The faces aren't really crisp. You get the buffering, you know, all this kind of stuff. We need better equipment to be able to do that on both coasts and also in the Midwest.
Yeah, we're hoping to expand more coverage to the Midwest. So it really, really helps. Any amount helps. Statuscoup.live. When we stream via another method called Streamlabs, this is StreamYard. I know that sounds the same, but it's different. Yeah. You'll see us live at statuscoup.live. But right now, you can still support us at statuscoup.live. You can also support us at our GoFundMe, which is GoFundMe. Hold on. I can't type and talk at the same time. GoFundMe.com/statuscoup. You can support us at any amount there. And as you see with my little name bar, statuscoup.com/join, that is how we thrive and grow. And you also get great bonus content. I just posted a video diary, for example. And my video diary is about my experience with, oh, great, there's another mass shooting. Okay, that just popped up on my screen. What a world, what a country. So anyway, I'll look into that after we hop off, but yikes.
Also, can we just say Letitia Turner is fire with her
I
comments
love
today?
you, Letitia, amazing. So I was walking around DC. I was reporting last weekend, and I feel like it was kismet. It was meant to be. I got to get to know a houseless trans Black woman, and so my video diary is about that, and just talking about her experiences. She's been sex trafficked and really horrible stuff, but she has such a story and such a vibe of like hope and never giving up. And so I don't know, it was such an important, like, life-changing moment, and I'm gonna keep up with her. And I also interviewed her as well, so that'll be up on the channel soon as well. But yeah, so join for things like that. We do video diaries, we do Ask Me Anything video calls, which will be next week. So it's just $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join. And we have a lot of great plans for the membership. I was just talking to Jordan about doing like deep dive series of things like JFK. Like we'll do a look at my, how do I point to it? Look at my man JFK back there with Bobby.
Yeah.
But we'll do like deep dive things like that, like a 10-parter on the assassination of JFK, like stuff like that. So yeah, join statuscoup.com/join, $5 a month, and anything you can do helps us out. We know times are tough, so we're not asking if you can't afford. We totally understand that. Share our stuff. Word of mouth helps, but if you can, if it is in your budget, then yeah, those are some ways that you can help us out. And check out, Tina is about to record a podcast with Ron Placone, who's awesome.
That's right.
So how can they find that, Tina? You're so bad at
sorry.
how to find stuff.
I am very not into marketing. Can you tell? I've never been. It's like not my thing. So Ron and a lot of people don't know this about Ron. Ron also has a master's degree and had thought about getting his PhD and didn't. Same with me. I have a master's in philosophy, and the one thing that stopped me from getting the PhD was I had to take. You're going to laugh at this, but it's true. I fully admit this publicly. I'm terrible at foreign language, and there's a massive foreign language requirement because they want you to be able to go back to the original text and read them in German or Latin, whatever. I mean, you're talking about something. I don't speak Swedish. I have the vocabulary of a 3-year-old. I took 7 years of Spanish and can barely get a word out in Spanish. Like, my brain is just not wired for foreign language. I struggle. The struggle is real.
Yeah, I said it.
Anyway, I digress. So we started a podcast called Academy Refugees, and obviously there's some humor involved in that. But we're going through and discussing various philosophy topics, but doing it from a more less of an academic viewpoint and more of a conventional wisdom viewpoint, if that makes sense. And obviously Ron's hilarious, so whenever I'm getting too far into like Professor Tina mode, he reels me in. So today we're going to record an episode on propaganda, and Ron's specialty is actually in media relations. So he has like a really good handle on that stuff. So it should be good.
Yeah, but how can they find it?
There's that. Oh, bad marketing.
You have to like psychically beam
like
it
it's like I try not to get my stuff seen. Oh wait, people actually want to go listen to that? Oh, whoops, my bad. Spotify, sorry, it's on Spotify. So,
and it's called what again? Remind people what it's called.
Academy Refugees. And then also I might as well mention this. So District 34 also on Spotify is my other podcast. This week I went and revisited the
but it's probably on other stuff too, or just Spotify?
Yeah, that's the main one, and then it gets RSS'd out to the universe. I'm not really sure how that all works, but yeah, it's on other. But I went down, as you know, I went down to Echo Park. Lake was reopened this week, and the unhoused folks that had been displaced during the LAPD removal and the renovation of the lake came back and they did a press conference. So it's a press conference of unhoused folks. And, I was listening to this, and it's long, it's an hour and a half long. I decided to deliver the entire thing unedited because, and I'll tell you why, each person, as they were telling their story, like there was nothing I could do to, like, I was like, no, this is important. This is important. All of their voices were important and need to be heard. So if you have an hour and a half in your life and you want to know where these folks are now and what's going on with them since they were displaced, it's a really solid thing to listen to. Anyway.
And a cop stole a houseless woman's dog, and so Tina spent her night.
Oh, that's right.
This woman get her dog back because Tina's a good person.
I did, you know, and so Jen calls me about work thing, and I'm like, I'm at Echo Park, and I'm like, let me call you back. I'm trying to help this unhoused individual get her dog back. Yeah, the cops took her dog, put it.
Oh, mean.
Turns out they had put it back in their car and called the pound, but they were hiding the dog, and we had, you know, gone looking around. Another journalist that I work with named Sean had been walking around for blocks trying to find this dog. Anyway, they're just these so screwed up. Like the things that they go through to re-victimize these individuals. And, you know, most of them, 2 of them were students that I spoke with. They were still in school. They just couldn't afford to pay rent. So they were living at Echo Park Lake because it was close enough to where their campus was. They could get to school and get to class. You know, other individuals working minimum wage jobs. And Project Room Key is absolutely not a solution. Project Room Key is ridiculous. You don't get a room key. Here's the thing. They're calling it Project No Key, which I think makes sense. You don't get a key to a room. You don't get a room.
It's crazy.
What you get is led into a hotel. And then if you're not there by 7 o'clock, you don't get a room. You have to be there by 7 o'clock. You have to be led into the room by whoever works there at the hotel. And then you can't leave again. You're locked in for the night. How does this make sense? And one of the individuals, you know, she's working and her shift doesn't end until like 9 o'clock at night. So it's impossible for her to get a room in Project Room Key. It's not even possible because of her job.
It's human. Yeah.
No, it's such fucking bullshit, you know, and it's, but this is what they do. If they really wanted to help these individuals, they would just give them a fucking room key and let them come and go. And that would be it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to do the structural change necessary to prevent the homelessness to begin with. It's all socioeconomic in its origins. You want to fix this, do something about housing costs and the fact that you created Costa Hawkins and completely obliterated rent control laws in the state. Do something about the minimum wage. You can't live off of $15 in the city of LA.
No.
It's impossible. You can't pay rent on that.
Nope.
Right, girl, you got me going. Sorry.
I know. Get pumped up. All right, let's run down the ways that you got your guys' things to do. Text COUP to 370-370. Do it right now. Get your phone out. Text COUP to 370-370. Then it won't matter what YouTube or whoever does to us. We can contact you. Go to statuscoup.pub/email. Pop your email in. Again, it won't matter what YouTube or whoever does to us. We can contact you.
There's mine.
Well, do you have your did you text COUP to 370-370, Tina?
I did over my destroyed, that's been through too many protest camera.
Yeah, so we need new equipment. As you can see, Tina is having issues. GoFundMe.com/statuscoup, any amount, or statuscoup.live, any amount. Also, we have Cash App now, which, wow, look at us being in the whatever century we're in, 21st, I think, right? I don't know. $, Status Coup. And what else? Statuscoup.com/join. So we rely on viewer support. We are completely independent. We are totally viewer funded. And YouTube is showing us the finger by suppressing us, by censoring us. And I do mean censoring. Twitch is also censoring us. When Tina and I interviewed Ronnie Barkin, an Israeli who is in full support of Palestinians and goes balls to the wall, like he went to London and is blocking Ebit, who is an Israeli manufacturer of weapons. He's awesome, but Twitch would not allow us to broadcast that interview. So,
like, an Israeli Jew isn't allowed to say apartheid about Israel. That is where American corporations are at. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
Like, silence any dissenting view, no matter what the source is. I just can't with these individuals anymore. We need more options for. Yeah, Ronnie Barkin is awesome though. So if you guys did miss this interview, please go back and give it a view, because it will hands down be the most knowledgeable interview you've ever heard on the subject of Israel and Palestine. I can say that without equivocation.
It is up on YouTube. Twitch did not allow it. So we're being suppressed. I've taken to whenever I title something with Palestine or Israel in it on YouTube, for example, I have to do it with the stars. Like I censor us. I censor Black Lives Matter stuff in certain ways now. Because that's what we've had to take to. So we're in talks to do certain things like over the top, which means broadcasting to Roku and Apple TV. We're trying to branch out. We're in talks with Rockfin to do some more stuff. So we're never going to give up. I say it all the time. I don't care if I'm standing in an alleyway, like handing out pamphlets. We're going to keep.
Neither do I. Girl, you and me both.
Let's do it. But we do need your support.
I will rally with my 5 viewers if that's what it gets down to.
Exactly. It's about getting the truth out. It's reporting what the truth is. And we're never, I wouldn't last a day at corporate media. Like Tina and I were saying with that ridiculous clip with Joe Biden where the journalist was like, "Can I ask you a question about Israel?" And Biden's like, he's testing an electric truck or something, and he's like, "No, if you do, I'll run you over." And the journalists are like, "Oh, that's so funny." Tina and I are like, we would literally jump in front of the car and like ask the question. What are these journalists doing? So that's
I don't know. That's what they do. That's what they do.
That's the kind of journalists they are.
Exactly.
But that's why we need viewer funding. No, I'm just saying, like we need viewer funding because we are real journalists and we don't take corporate money. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this week at Echo Park was another example. For reasons I was like actually shocked that both KTLA and CBS LA showed up, and one of the other locals, I can't remember, showed up to cover some of this. Of course, they didn't stay for the whole thing. But as I was leaving, I said to one of the local other journalists, I'm like, so, Mitch O'Farrell, who's the council person responsible for this area, they spent over $50 million on this 1 month or 2 month renovation of Echo Park Lake. I see absolutely nothing change. Like, what did he waste all this money on? Like, so the journalist side of you should question that. You see like this giant amount of money, which by the way, does not include the LAPD part of the budget for clearing out Echo Park Lake. That's not included in this. This is strictly supposed to be the renovations. So anybody that sees this large number and then goes there and sees that it's pretty much, there's a few new plants. Like, I mean, I went to Lowe's and I spent $3,000 on plants and planted them. What did they spend $50 million on? You would think, you would question that. So I said something to her and she's like, she started just giving me a list of stenography that she'd been, I'm like, okay, that's the press release. I already read it. Thank you so much. You're not questioning that? Nothing in your journalist brain is saying, this doesn't make sense.
We just got a hilarious question on Twitch from Doggone Again saying, "Why is Jen always angry?" Literally no one has ever asked that before. No one would describe me as angry, I don't think.
I don't think you're angry. I think I get more bent than you do, honestly.
Pretty much everyone says, "Why is Jen so giggly and happy?" I don't really know what you're talking about, Doggone Again. Sorry.
Maybe I'm rubbing off on you.
I'm pretty much a Pollyanna, like, everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be good. But when you report on like people being insane racist, like, yeah, I guess I'm going to be angry about that.
It's justified and understood.
Yeah, Joanna, the sweet kindergarten teacher is angry. I was a first grade teacher. I loved my kitty pies. They were cutie patooties. All right, guys, I do have to let Tina go. Poor Ron has been waiting for her. So I love you all. If you can help us,
Ron's
please
having a beer.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. We could not do this without you. Love you. Help us if you can.
Yeah, the Status Coup family is pretty solid. I have to say, I love coming on with Jen. I love working with Status Coup. It's been like about a year now. About a year, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love
it.
Nevada. What a
right.
time. Good times. Man. Free Bernie. From the grasp.
I know. Free Bernie.
All right, guys. Share this stuff. Share this stream today too, because people don't know. People still don't know. People still don't realize.
And
all right.
Make sure you go watch the Ronnie Barkin interview. Seriously, more people need to learn about the history and what's really going on there. I think once they have an understanding of some of these nuts, because these are things that do not get discussed by anybody.
Very eye-opening.
It is very eye-opening. Very eye-opening.
Absolutely. Stuff about the media, stuff about how people are allowed to live and not allowed to live, propaganda.
And how their passports don't even say Israeli. I mean, that's really eye-opening, isn't it?
Yeah, Jewish. It says it's the
Jewish or
crazy.
Arab.
It's
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. All right. Love you all. Love you all. And we will keep going no matter what. Stay tuned for Call and Julie tomorrow, going live from McKinney, Texas, about Marvin Scott III. All right. Peace. Bye-bye, guys.